Welcome out. We are taking a look at the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, through the eyes of the arguers, those who are arguing for and against certain elements or aspects of the Constitution, mostly for the positive, but there were obviously some issues, and that's what we're going to look at now, more directly so than in the introduction. Here it's specifically labeled Section 2, advantages, Section 3, disadvantages of existing government, and then, of course, the advantages of the Union over the existing government. And I want to caution people, there's a lot here. There's a lot to know historically, understanding the background of where the Constitution, our democratic republic, came from. What were its origins, its cause, why were so many willing to even sacrifice, give up their livelihoods, their security, their family, friends, and very lives to move far away. It was much further at that time, those distances that we take for advantage now. You just jump on a jet and you're on the other shores, foreign shores, in a relatively quick period of time. But back in the day, you're talking weeks, to traverse between one country and another via the seas. So why were people willing to give up so much? It was a lot. It was frightening. A lot of unknowns. You're giving up livelihoods, work, security, the known, family, friends. Some people have a difficult time just moving from one state to another. I moved from Connecticut to Boston, and then from Boston to Los Angeles. Pretty big moves. But that pales in comparison to what the settlers did or had to do. And why were they doing this? Dire circumstances, dire straits. They had no alternatives. They were living under a dictatorship. Their freedoms were taken away. Give me liberty or give me death. William Wallace, the Scotsman, Braveheart, watch that movie. Upon being caught, he was always in contention with the British Crown. The Irish and the Scots were always looking to seeking their freedoms. Just leave us alone. Let us live. Stop harassing us, harming us, enslaving us, killing us, limiting our resources, so forth, right? And he was about to be pulled apart, not tarred and feathered, but quartered, have his body pulled apart. And the king just said to him, not directly, but through his representatives, just confess your allegiance to the crown. Just do it, right? Shia LaBeouf, just do it, right? Pledge your allegiance to the crown. Just do that, and you can live, and you can continue to enjoy life. But he wasn't enjoying life, right? And he said no. And allegedly, at least by what we see in the film, his last word, not words, but word, was freedom as he was being killed, right? And this is what people are going through. And this is what many go through now. This is why many still to this day risk their lives, life and limb. There's a story, there's a video. I should probably, to get a real feel for what we've got here. And I know that people complain about this country, and they complain about the laws, and they complain about the restrictions, and they complain about this and that and blah, blah, blah. You've got it good. You have it amazingly good compared to the rest of the world. Okay. Amazingly good. Instead of complaining about what you don't have or what you think you don't have, oftentimes that thinking that you don't have something is misplaced, oftentimes, sadly, but people are very ignorant. Instead of worrying so much about having a little bit more, you have more than 80–90% of the world, and you want more. Maybe the thing to do is to look around the world and help those around the world get more, right? Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's the mentality. Maybe that's the mindset. Maybe that's what I'm trying to do here. Build an appreciation for not only what you've got, but appreciate what you've got through helping others. You can do it here. You can do it in your home. You can do it in your community, but you can do it nationally and internationally, right? And of course, with the internet, nowadays we have ways of reaching out to others online. And I've done that myself. I've reached out to others across the globe, no big shakes, me, I'm no big shakes. But we can all do our part. So one of the things that I realized I needed to do, I lived in Boston for a while, and I walked the Freedom Trail, and I began to learn about this country, and I began to learn about the hardships that this country went through. And it really opened my eyes to what we had. Those before us, the founding fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers, all those who sacrificed their lives. And it wasn't just the soldiers. It was the women, it was the children. Many women and children died as well. So what they went through, the fear, the terror, the horror, abject horror of being killed, of being worse than that, even harmed in some way, and then imprisoned and having your freedoms restricted for unsaid periods of time. So this is big stuff. This is why I do what I do. Okay. Anyways, let's move on. We're looking at the advantages of union, right? At this point, this section consists of 6 papers discussing the advantages of union in general and not the advantages of a particular form of union as set forth in the proposed Constitution. A firm union acts to prevent domestic faction and insurrection. A reading of the histories of petty republics of Greece and Italy caused such sensations of horror and disgust at the distractions with which they were continually agitated that advocates of despotism had drawn arguments not only against all forms of republic government, but against the very principle of civil liberty. The science of politics, however, like most other sciences, has received great improvement. Not known at all or imperfectly known to the ancients, said Hamilton, who went on to quote at length from the great French political philosopher Montesquieu, whose Spirit of the Laws had become a classic. So this is something to keep in mind as well, too. This country wasn't just formed out of a vacuum. It wasn't, it's not that nothing, some people think nothing was going on and all of a sudden people said, hey, let's go form another country. Why? Well, in order to travel the seas, travel into the unknowns, right? And people believed that there were monsters in the seas and they didn't know, a lot of functioning in ignorance. They didn't know what was out there. Monsters, well, definitely great distances. And many who came to the shores died of diseases. They died of starvation. Most died. Those who came here early on before this country was established died. They died in great numbers, but they still kept coming. And that's the key. They still kept coming, right? Anyways, the founding fathers as I said, didn't live in a vacuum, right? They're looking at what had happened in their country, what had happened in Greece, Rome. They're looking at antiquity. They're looking at current events, and they know. They've read the history. They've read the philosophies. They've read the political science, right? Extracting from this work what suited his argument. Hamilton cited Montague and the advantages of what the latter called a Confederate republic. There you go. A kind of assemblage of societies that constitute a new one, capable of increasing by means of new associations, till they arrive to such a degree of power as to be able to provide for the security of the united body. A republic of this kind, able to withstand an external force, may support itself without any internal corruption. The American Republic, if placed under the proposed Constitution, would answer that description. And there's a little bit of analysis here. The disquisitions here by Hamilton on the weakness of the petty republics in ancient Greece and Italy were not good history, being rather superficial, but made good argument for the large Federalist plan of government he favored. Hamilton was also rather partisan in the passage he chose to quote. There you go. So, cherry picking, bias, overstatement, misreading, misstating, to support your case, to support your point. This is, this goes on to this day. Those on the left will, same as those on the right, to support their point, just totally ignore bold, in your face facts, contradictions, hypocrisies to support their case, right? And again, nothing functions in a vacuum. Nobody is fully and wholly saint-like or good, right? Humans are good and bad. There's good and bad in every human, in all humans, in all people, in all parties, in all groups. So don't be thinking that one group is superior to another in some moral or ethical way. Nothing could be further from the truth. Understand your people. Understand yourself. That's one of my pet peeves. That's one of the aspects of this program that I'm teaching. All right, let's go to number 10. This is James Madison. You should know James. Is this his first time? Yeah, this is his first essay. Number 10. James Madison. Great intellectual, very short in stature, great in brain. Constitution. He wrote it. He's the man. He's him. Right? All these he's, him, she's, her statements today pale in comparison to the more important things that have been done by human beings. And they're not done in entertainment or in sports, right? That's the candy store of life. People reverse things. They take the candy stores of life and put them superior to all other things that are way more important, such as the political arena, the health arena, philosophical arena, philosophy, and so forth. Right? This essay, the first of Madison's contribution to the series, was a rather long developed a theme that a well-constructed union would break and control the violence of faction, a dangerous vice in popular governments. As defined by Madison, a faction was a number of citizens, whether a majority or minority, who were united and activated by some common impulse of passion or to interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. Some people think that it's the majority that's the problem. Sometimes it's the minority. Nazis and Nazi Germany were the minority of Germans, but nevertheless, they were very powerful. They were very aggressive. They were very determined. And if you confronted them, even if you were German, you lost your life. Fascism, evil in the most abject sense. There were two ways of removing the causes of faction factions or political parties. The first was to destroy the liberty essential to their existence. Their remedy would be worse than the disease. This remedy, sorry. The second was to getting rid of liberty, destroy the liberty. Fascism, there you go. The second was to give everyone the same opinions, passions, and interests. This was impossible. Of course, woven into the fabric of all societies, deeply planted in the very nature of man, humankind, were conflicting ideas, interests, and passions. Somebody tattoo that on themselves. Everybody tattoo that on themselves. Woven into the fabric of all societies, deeply planted in the very nature of humans, are conflicting ideas, interests, and passions. So if you see somebody who is annoying you and they have a particular opinion, passion, interest, angle, slant, whatever, don't expect them to give it up. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. I get offended by a lot of things. There's a lot of things out there that offend. But those who are offending feel that their offense is not wrong, that they're perfectly fine and just in doing what they do, right? And I probably offend some people thinking that that which I offend with is also perfectly just and fine and wonderful and great, right? So you've really, as a good critical thinker, as a good human being, as a good member of society, you really got to let it go. You've really got to open your mind, open your heart, relax, stop being so selfish and infantile and small in the brain, and understand these differences. Understand people. Get out of your ignorance. Get out of your blinding, blithering ignorance. It's killing us. It's always been killing us. It's not that it's getting any worse. It's not getting any better, that's for sure. But anyways, woven into the fabric of all society is deeply planted in the very nature of man, where conflicting ideas, interests, and passions. The greatest source of factions had always been the various and unequal distribution of property. All humans have the right to life, liberty, and property, right? That was the original statement, not life, liberty, and happiness, right? Madison modified that. Why? I don't know. That's a good question. Good question. Look it up. Those who hold and those who are without property have ever formed distinct interests in society. Those who are creditors and those who are debtors, a landed interest, a manufacturing interest, a mercantile interest, a moneyed interest with many lesser interests grow up of necessity in civilized nations, divide them into different classes, actuated by different sentiments and views. The regulation of these various and interfering interests forms the principal task of modern legislation. There you go, right? So there is difference. There are the haves and have-nots. Should we just force the haves to give it all to the have-nots? No, because the have-nots will then have not after a while. You don't just give stuff to people who don't know how to acquire things. They don't have the discipline. They don't have the wherewithal to acquire and to retain and to hold. Maybe that's why they don't have things in the first place. Those who do acquire things have acquired the skill to not only acquire things, but to keep them and build. Do we ever think of this? Secondary effects. Damn it. I said it. Damn it. Think secondary effects. Think. The interference to which we are brought is that the cause of faction cannot be removed, and that relief is only to be sought in the means of controlling its effects. Such effects can be better controlled in a large society under a representation form of government than in a small society under a popular form of government. The proposed constitution would check the power of factions. Faction is just a division, a break, right? Breaking groups, breaking groupings by balancing one against the other. Factious leaders might kindle a flame in one state but would be unable to spread a general conflagration throughout the states. A rage for paper money, for abolition of debts, for an equal division of property, or for any other improper or wicked project was not likely to spread if those professing themselves Republicans showed zeal in supporting the character of Federalists. Yeah, well, the Federalists were a party back in the day. It wasn't Democrats and Republicans, Republicans and Federalists. Madison's definition of a faction or political party is interesting and most significant in view of the fact that Madison soon ceased to be one of the Federalists who believed in one party system and became Jefferson's most active lieutenant in organizing the opposition, the Democratic Republican Party, which was strongly anti-Federalist and took power after 1800. There you go. Number 11, Hamilton, continuing on. Repeating himself somewhat, Hamilton declared that a closer union would greatly benefit American commerce. The growth of the nation's trade and shipping had already led Europe, maritime powers, led European maritime powers to think of clipping the wings by which we might soar to a dangerous greatness. Essential to the growth of American economy was the creation of a federal navy of sufficient strength. There it is. There's your navy to make its weight felt in the world. Such an armed naval force would enable the country to bargain with great advantage for commercial rights and privileges, right? So it's not that the United States or America would use the Navy in an aggressive way, but to protect itself, mostly. If it needed to go aggressive, sure. But it was mostly about, flexing. See, we got our ships out here, but we're going to protect them. You can't just have your pirates come along or anybody come along and run roughshod over us, shoot us down, take our stuff, right? So unrestrained trade among the states, as proposed in the new Constitution, would also be a boon. Working closely together, the states could supply one another's differing needs and produce a surplus for export on American ships. So that's it right there, right? Unrestrained trade. And that's why you want United States of America, not independent sovereignties of America, right? Things run much more smoothly, politically, geographically, business-wise, commerce-wise, right? So to have all these states united under one flag, one constitution, one standard set of laws makes everything run much more efficiently, smoothly, greater production, greater output, greater freedom, greater opportunities, greater. You get it? Is this sinking in? Hello, Bueller? Bueller's Day Off. Go watch that movie. America should aim at the ascendant. Too long had Europe lorded it over the world as if the rest of mankind were created to her benefit. There you go. Europeans, including some so-called profound philosophers, had gone to the length of asserting that all animals, including the human species, were so degenerate in America that even dogs ceased to bark after having breathed a while in our atmosphere. What? There was time that such arrogant pretensions be disproved. It belongs to us to vindicate the honor of the human race. Let Americans disdain to be the instruments of European greatness. If the states were closely joined under a federal constitution, they would be able to dictate the terms of connection between the old and the new world. Analysis. Hamilton elaborated on this point that a close union would greatly benefit American commerce. What I said, particularly, and other things as well, right? You would be able to move freely. You are free to move about the cabin, right? The seatbelts are off. The be seated aisle signs are off, right? If you want to move from one state to another, if you want to travel from one state to another, if you want a vacation in another state, one state to another, if you want to make money in one area of the country and then move to another area and make money over there. So many freedoms, so many opportunity, and such great power inherent in the United States. Think that through. Think this through. Think, use your brain, think about it. Think. Put down the video games. Put away the social media. Stop with the constant sports. Do something of significance. Do something that those who sacrificed their lives for, so that this country could be here, do something in their honor. Think for their sake, if not for yours. Close union would greatly benefit American commerce, particularly if protected by a strong Navy. Europeans, with their arrogant pretensions that the world belonged to them, should be put in their place. Americans would thus vindicate the honor of the human race and be able to dictate the terms between the old world and the new. Well, how about that? A new union would increase governmental revenues. I said that. Facilitate their collection. The development of commerce would make it easier not only to pay taxes, but to collect them. The greater part of national revenues should come from the imposition of custom duties and various excises, which would be imperceptible taxes on consumption. In France, said Hamilton, 50% of the national revenues came from import duties and domestic excises. In Britain, even more. American revenues from such sources could easily be tripled. What should be noted here is Hamilton's statement that in raising revenues for national governments, the levying of taxes on property and income had proved to be impractical. Hence, if the proposed constitution were adopted, the new national government would raise a large portion of its revenue from custom duties, excise taxes, and similar imposts, or by what Hamilton called the imperceptible agency of taxes on consumption, what we now call a sales tax. There it is, sales tax. All right, moving on. Fortunately, these summaries are short, so we're not spending oodles of time. As I said, I'm thinking and I'm looking, if need be, to skip at certain points. We may get really bogged down in some extensive text. So, skipping forth is the flavor of the moment, because what we're trying to do is to just get an overview, right? We're not going to become constitutional scholars. I'm not. If you want to, go ahead. Your time is now. I hate these commercials. A firm union would bring economy in the operations and costs of government. There would be just one national civil list to support. Some men were talking of dividing the country into 3 confederacies, one consisting of the 4 northern, another of the 4 middle, and a third of the 5 southern states. Each of these confederacies would be at the expense of supporting a whole elaborate government apparatus. Hamilton then speculated on the difficult problems certain states would face in the event of dismemberment, which be used to point his conclusion that separation would be not less injurious to the economy than the tranquility, commerce, revenue, and liberty of every part. No one could deny Hamilton's argument here that the cost of supporting a national government apparatus would be less if the country remained united. There it is again, right? Instead of being split into 2 or 3 sovereign confederacies, each would have to have its own governmental apparatus, right? So that's the thing. When we're in unity, right, to be unified, and I know current president, other presidents have talked about we must be unified. In most cases, we are. In most cases, we are. I know there's a lot of bickering and fighting and contention between the parties, but that's just the media. That's the political parties. That's the political pundits and the media. They're the ones, most of them are the ones making the noise. Most Americans, just average Joe and Jane Americans, the 98, 99% of the rest of the country, I was going to say world, but country, get along pretty well. They put down their contentions and their differences, or they really don't even think about it much. Oftentimes, to be honest, if you're always watching television or always watching the news or always reading blogs, political blogs and social media and stuff, you'll think, everybody's at everybody's throat all the time. It's not true. Yeah. A lot of that is done for, to be honest, to sell, to get likes, to sell revenue, to get people to your page, to get people to your video, to your TV station, right? Your news station, your news show. A lot of it's just to sell. A lot of it, really, to be honest. One more, very short. This chapter is a summary of the main points made in the preceding essays. There you go. Let's look at disadvantages. We got about 4 of those. 4. So we're moving along nicely. This section contains 8 essays, chapter centered on the theme that the United States could not long survive if the country continued to be governed under the Articles of Confederation. There you go. So therefore, no more of this, right? And this gets into what I was talking about before, a little bit of the background, right? You need to know, how do we get here? Why did we get here? What's so important about the Constitution? Wasn't there some other legal documents, law documents that were guiding the country? Yeah, but not good to keep them and upgrade, right? And emphasizing the point that the crisis was imminent and necessitated immediate action against impending anarchy. The point next in order, wrote the author, is the insufficiency of the present Confederation to the preservation of the Union, and insufficiency that had led the country to the last stage of humiliation, being both weak at home and flouted abroad. The chief vice of the Confederacy lay in the principle of legislation for states or government in their corporate or collective capacities as contradistinguished, that's a nice word, contradistinguished from the individuals of whom they consist. It looks like a compound word. The consequence was that the resolutions of Congress were not laws, but mere recommendations to the states which accepted or rejected them as they chose. The authority of the Union under a general discretionary superintendence, see, not just you, should be extended to the persons of the citizens, the only proper objects of government. These are just common words used by everyday people. Don't worry about them. Government implies the power to make laws. Laws, if they are to mean anything at all, have to be attended with a sanction. That is, a penalty or punishment for disobedience. Under the Confederation, the central government did not have the authority, there you go, bingo, right? Or the power to impose penalties on recalcitrant states, which left a mere shadow of government scarcely deserving the name. With what result? The measures of the Union had not been executed, and the delinquencies of the states have step by step matured themselves to an extreme, which have at length arrested all the wheels of the national government and brought them to an awful stand. Still, the frail and tottering edifice seems ready to fall upon our heads and to crush us beneath its ruins. So they weren't collecting money, delinquencies, right? And a lot of that had to do with after the war, after the American Revolution, collecting money or collecting revenue or becoming solvent, financially solvent, was a big issue. And if they didn't straighten things out economically, kind of like us now, massive debt, massive inflation, massive spending. If they didn't straighten things out, then this country might not be around for long, right? Alexander Hamilton, he was the great savior. It was he who was able to get the finances together and to keep this country moving forward. If you look at, I know that there's always talk about getting rid of statues of former bad Americans, taking down statues and whatnot. And also, get rid of the people on the money, put some modern people on there, put some people of color or women on there, whatever. But what most people don't know, and here we go again, we live in a world of ignorance abounding. Ignorance abounds. What did somebody say? The most populous element in the universe is hydrogen, right? And I think it was Frank Zappa who said that's contrary to belief. The most populous element in the universe is not hydrogen, it's stupidity. Specifically, human stupidity. I might have to agree with him there. There's not a lot of thinking going on, right? So the debts had to be paid. And Hamilton, who is he's on the $10 bill. Who do we got on the money? Count de Monet. Go watch History of the World by Mel Brooks. Count de Monet. Sounds like count the money. It's supposed to be Count de Monet, but he says count the money. But anyways, that's a Mel Brooks joke. Anyways, on the $1 bill, who do you get? You got Washington. Why is he significant? Well, he was the first general. He was the general of the American Revolution. And without his help, the war might not have been won, right? So he kept the country together, right? On the $5 bill, who do we have? Abraham Lincoln. And we know about Lincoln now, why he is one of the, well, now you probably know more so now than before, why Abraham Lincoln is always seen as the most important, most significant president, if not top 5 for sure, if not number 1, because of the fact that he kept the Union together, right? He kept the United States of America together, right? So he kept the great democratic republic experiment rolling forth, right? Then we got Hamilton on the 10. Who do we got on the 10, on the 20? And then who we've got? We've got Andrew Jackson, great American general, War of 1812, maybe single-handedly responsible for winning the war, again, in contention with the British. So another situation, another individual having great impact upon this great union, these great United States, having great impact, and again, keeping this democratic experiment alive and moving forward. Ulysses S. Grant, general, Civil War, obviously. Benjamin Franklin. Why is Benjamin Franklin on the $100 bill? Well, during the American Revolution, we were really hurting. That is a war that was won through attrition. The United States didn't win a lot of battles. The United States didn't have regulars, soldiers, trained, hardened, disciplined, good fighting soldiers. They were mostly militia, farmers, right? So one of the philosophies, and I think of Monty Python, the Holy Grail, run away, run away. That was one of the philosophies of George Washington. That's a great military philosophy. Run away, get the hell out of there. We're not going to win. If we stay, all our troops will be killed and the war is over, right? So let's string them along a little further. String them along a little further, right? So the United States, the Americans needed help. So they sent their rock and roll idol. Benjamin Franklin at that time was seen as a great celebrity, because he was a statesman, he was a businessman, he was a philosopher, and believe it or not, a lot of people don't know this, when he was younger, he was quite the ladies' man. He used to like to lift the weights and be in shape. Of course, the pictures most of us see, it's him older in life like me. You know, I don't look like my, you know, in shape lifting self of 20 years ago. But anyways, so he went over to France, and he got the French to sign on to the cause, right? And another case where an individual was significant, played a very important role in keeping this country moving forward. Okay. So now, you know, if people say, well, take these guys off the bills, off the money bills, you know, take Jefferson and Abraham Lincoln and Jackson and Ulysses S. Grant and Franklin, and take them all, Lincoln, take them all off. Yeah, put just miscellaneous people on there. You know, they're on there for a reason, and they're gonna stay on there. I can tell you right now. Anyways, where were we? Let's go to the analysis. Kind of sum things up. I'm taking maybe too much time here. Hamilton here again stressed that the insufficiency of the American Federation arose from the fact that there was no general superintendents, and such superintendents should be extended beyond the Confederate state governments to the people themselves in their persons as citizens, the only proper objects of government. There it is. It's going to the people. This country is about the people, of the people, by the people, for the people. The first principle of the 6 principles is that the people are sovereign, the people, the people, the people, the people. And we're talking about each individual person, all right? Each individual person, their rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are and should be and should continue to be protected. And if you think that's bad and that needs to be rewritten, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say for you. Let's look at the last 3. Let's move this dog and pony show forward a little more quickly. That's a lot of reading, isn't it, folks? Let's go to the analysis. We'll just look at the analysis. In these 5 essays, Madison and Hamilton belabored their contention that the principle of Confederacy was the parent of anarchy, as well as the fertile soil for wars, both civil and foreign. There you go. The principle of Confederacy was the parent of anarchy. Interesting. Digging into history to buttress their contention with analogies, it was ingenious, to say the least, to assert that the feudal systems during the Dark Ages and Middle Ages, and this is greatly where the desire for this country arose from, because of the fact that back in much of Europe, if not all, much of Europe and Britain, the Isles, the United Kingdom, right? United. Was it a United Kingdom? Not always. Very rarely, I should say. So those were all monarchies, dictators, kings, right? Despots. Europe partook of the nature of confederacies. To compare the 13 Confederate American states, the oppressive and constantly warring feudal barons, was certainly far-fetched. But Hamilton pursued his point that America was rapidly approaching times of feudal anarchy. See, we might be heading back there now. Nor were the analogies from the history of ancient Greece much more germane. Look that word up if you don't know it. I'm not going to give you everything. The Greek city-states, Athens, Sparta, Thebes, and others, had deeper and more serious problems than the exact terms of their Confederate cooperation and the whatever that was, council and its successor, the Achaean League, both of which failed of their purpose. The analogies drawn from the history of the Germanic body and from the histories of Switzerland and Holland were even less accurate. Madison and Hamilton went out of their way to declare that the close cooperation among the Swiss Cantons did not constitute a confederacy at all, that the United Netherlands, a confederation of 7 Dutch republics, was an imbecility in government. Do you know that the Dutch ruled the world at one time? These people don't know anything. What the authors refrained from remarking was that the Swiss and the Dutch people, whatever their government imbecility, were better off, for the most part, than the people ruled by strong governments and the monarchies of Britain, France, Spain, Russia, and fragmented into Germany and the United States. Okay. And if you want to know more about that, you can read on. I am just trying to finish up here because I think we've got the gist of it all. Let's go to the analysis again. Getting back on more familiar ground where his footing was more sure, Hamilton summarized his objections to the existing central government under several headings. First, its total want of a sanction to its laws. It could not command obedience or punish disobedience. There you go, right? Second, the principle of assigning to states a quota of money to be paid into the national treasury. States were often in arrears. Yeah. So the Articles of Confederation, it was kind of like, hey, states, you owe us some taxes. Can you throw us some money our way? Your poor government would like to be paid for things, get money for things. And also, for instance, the war debt. Central government tried to collect money from the war debt. It was like, say, 15 trillion, and they got like 2.5 million, $15 million. And the government got like 2.5 or 3 million or something, right? So, before the Constitution, Articles of Confederation, very weak. Had written up the Articles of Confederation, had written up or transacted a very weak government. States were often in arrears, and there you go, and occasionally refused to pay anything toward carrying out measures of which they disapproved. National government should have the power to raise revenue in its own way. It's true. Now, you know what the strongest entity in the United States is? You would say the U.S. military, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, Congress, no. FBI, CIA, no. The IRS, yeah. Now it's probably got too much power. Hamilton suggested by what were virtually sales taxes in the form of imposts, excises, in general, all duties upon articles of consumption. Hamilton did not note that the sales tax fall harder upon the poor than the rich. True. Third, the government's want of power to regulate commerce, whether interstate or foreign. Four, the government's inability to raise troops. Yeah, there you go. That's another problem. Except by requisition. And that is another problem. If you have, these guys wanted to break up the country into what, 4 sections? 3 or 4 sections? Confederacies, I guess. And if that's basically 4 separate, for all intents and purposes, 4 separate countries. And if war is waged, who is the country going to wage war against? Is it going to pick? Let's see. We'll pick Confederacy number 1 and 4. We would like to battle you. 2 and 3, we have nothing to say with you. Actually, 2 and 3, why don't you fight with us against 3 and 4? You see the problem? See what happens? Right? Yeah. So breaking things up like that causes all kinds of problems. That's why, and Lincoln knew this, and many of the people who call him the greatest president know this. That's why you need a United States of America. And you never knew that. You had no clue. You don't know. They don't teach this. They don't. Well, maybe they do somewhat in high school. They don't do a damn good job of it. They don't make it real. Just it's all facts and boring history, staid, boring, trite, trivial, soon to be forgotten. Gee, the quicker I can forget this knowledge, the better type of education that you're getting. you get grades, but do you retain the information? Do you use the information? Do you build upon the information? Is the information pertinent to your existence? Can you use it for yourself? Can you use it for yourself and to help others intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and otherwise? Think. And the word is think. I felt like I was going to go religious for a second. The word is T, capital T, capital think. Fifth, the fact that under the Confederation, each state, large, small, whether quite populous or much less populous, had an equal right, one state, one vote. And the decision-making of the central governments created injustice and inequality. It violated the fundamental maxim of Republican government, which requires that the sense of the majority, oh, something I'm missing there. Editing issues. Sixth, the crowning defect of the Confederation was its want of judiciary power. There should be one Supreme Court possessing a general superintendent and authorized to declare, in the last resort, a uniform rule of civil justice. This whole thing. Whoops. This is good stuff right here. This is the. If you want to talk about it, let's copy it. I should print it. This is basically why the Constitution, right? Why the Constitution? This is the objections to the existing central government. So if did I miss another one? No. Anyways, so let's finish. The only way to avoid impending disaster was as swift as possible ratification, make it so, of the proposed new Constitution, argued Hamilton, although as noted before, he thoroughly disapproved of the Philadelphia document, accepting it only because, along with Washington and others, he thought that it was as good as could be expected under the circumstances. All right. And what do we have here? Do I have to go over anything else? Let me take a quick look down here. Yeah, this is Hamilton's several strong points about the lack of power of the national government. So this is another thing to look at, right? Maybe I should cut that out. For one thing, it cannot regulate or control either interstate or foreign commerce. The states erected high tariff barriers against one another, right? Patrick Henry once was eloquent advocate of free trade, turned provincial in the 1780s, and as a member of the House of Delegates, proposed that the Virginia legislature prohibit the importation from other states or foreign nations of any beef, pork, butter, cheese, distilled liquor, that heavy duties be imposed to discourage the import of coal, so forth, right? Foreign trade represented a different, but rather similar problem. To increase its export and import business, the infant republic had great need to negotiate advantageous commercial treaties with European nations. The national government had the right to negotiate such treaties, but the right was largely theoretical. As European diplomats asked, what was the point of negotiating a commercial treaty with the national government so long as the individual states could tax and regulate foreign trade as they pleased, right? So that's another reason for a strong central government. So there's the problems. You see the problems? People have no idea how complex things are when you're talking about a country and running a country, and whether or not a country should be divided, and whether or not you should have a constitutional republic or what. Should you have all sovereign states? How much power should the states have? How much power should the central government have? And if the central government needs a certain amount of power, that power needs to be kept in check so it does not go beyond its means or go beyond what is necessary for the greater good of the people. See? Think it through. Think it through. My dad said, your head, not just a place to keep your hat. There's a brain underneath that skull cap somewhere. Use it. The greatest of the Confederation's disability was the fact that the Continental Congress did not have the authority to raise any revenue directly for the support of the national government carrying out its various functions. Boom, there you go. Finally, look at the last paragraph there. Consequently, in want of ready money, the national government was often delinquent in meeting its debts and obligations, which hurt American credit prestige. So there you go. So the reason why all this stuff eventually worked out, because why? Because we know the United States has been a leader for decades, for a long time, 1,500 years. I don't know how long, right? People still look to the United States as the money. United States of the money. That's good. That's what we should be calling United States of the money. Damn, I'm gonna make a t-shirt on that. United States of the money. Don't get me going. Laugh at my own jokes. So anyways, United States de monnaie. Okay. Boy. I'm high on boredom. You do enough of this stuff. It's like, take Calgon, take me home. All right, put me in the bath. I want to hear nice calming music. I want to float my rubber ducky and have a nice drink. But anyways, the work must go on. United States de monnaie. All right, stop it. I'm going to get the giggles. All right, so the United States has become a stabilizing force. Its money is a stabilizing force, and the financial world, it is the anchor upon which all the other monetary units, divisions, whatever you want to call them, function, right? We're the anchor. We're the founding money, the anchoring money, the dollar bill, the dollar, right? So far, we got to get rid of this debt. That's causing some problems. Will other countries continue to invest in the United States if it keeps borrowing and continue to borrow way too much money? Needs to get revenues above spending, right? More money coming in than going out, right? More revenue than debt. Right now, the debt is winning. So we got to bring that down. We got to stop spending. We need fiscally conservative people in office, or else this thing could get out of control. We are in new waters, unprecedented waters. We've never had this amount of debt, massive debt. And if you want to know more about this, look at my economy videos. And just because things haven't blown up yet doesn't mean that they won't, or that they can't, right? So the United States, this is all pretty much worked out in our favor, because the United States has been constantly and continues to be looked at as a stabilizing force, monetarily, militarily, in commerce, trade, and in other ways, right? The United States is seen around the world as a stabilizing force. More people coming to the United States than any other country, in the millions, as we know, legally, illegally. Why? People vote with their feet. Where are the people walking to? Where are the people going? You can hear all what you want to hear. Stories and lies and misinformation and fake news and whatever. People vote with their feet. And those feet are moving towards the United States of America, right? Continue to do so. So that's enough for now. I think I've pretty much buried this one. So that's it for now, people. Take care. We'll see you soon. Have a good day.